Shocking new revelations in the brutal murders of 4 Idaho college students last fall. A new report claims the 2 roommates who survived the massacre were awake and texting each other while their 4 friends were stabbed to death one by one. This new revelation reportedly coming from grand jurors on the case and leaked to family members. Now, the only suspect, Brian Kohberger, is still awaiting trial. According to the probable cause filing, one surviving roommate says she witnessed the killer, described as having, quote, bushy eyebrows, walking past her and then out of the home. Prosecutors say they do have Kohberger's DNA found on a knife sheath left under one of the victims, and the judge has entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf. Let's bring in Misty Marris, legal analyst and trial attorney. Misty, thank you so much for your time. So this is a new twist. It allegedly comes from grand jurors in the case, but no one is going on record. What was your initial reaction to this potential bombshell?
As far as this is concerned, it's really difficult to verify whether this information is actually true. So let's go through a little bit of the history of the case. When the news first broke about this terrible, tragic killing, we learned that there were 2 roommates who survived the attacks who were in the house at the time. Now, at first we heard that they were both asleep. They didn't wake up till the following day. Then hits the probable cause affidavit. Well, the story begins to change. One of the roommates now had this encounter where she sees the assailant in the house that evening. So this is a dramatic change from the information that was set forth in that probable cause affidavit, if it were in fact the case that the 2 roommates were awake and texting during that time. So what does it mean for the case? Well, that would certainly be contemporaneous evidence relayed in those text messages as to what the 2 roommates heard and saw that night. Now, again, we haven't verified whether or not this is true, and we likely won't know until the trial actually unfolds. But it would certainly be a game changer for the prosecution.
Well, it certainly would, Misty. And we know that there is, a gag order in this case, as, a fact that we need to remember. So what happens if someone keeps leaking information, whether or not it's true, and even if they're doing it anonymously?
If the leaker is a grand juror, there are very, very strict rules about what grand juries can say in the public sphere. Now, those rules change jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but Idaho has a similar rule to New York. Grand jurors are not allowed to speak to anybody about the evidence that they see in the courtroom, about the deliberations as far as coming to that conclusion of actually coming back with an indictment. So this would all be completely off limits if, in fact, a grand juror was leaking this information. And there could be serious repercussions. It could be contempt of court. It could put the whole indictment at issue, depending on the nature of the communication. So that is certainly a problem. The gag order is really far and really expansive with respect to the prosecution, the defense, and any statements made or evidence that comes into the public sphere. So yes, there are very serious repercussions as far as contempt of court type charges and even jail time that could be associated with that. Now, that being said, anonymous leakers are sometimes, number one, difficult to verify and sometimes difficult to identify. So it truly depends on the nature of the communication and whether or not that person can actually be tracked down. But keep in mind, anything that comes out in the public outside of the courtroom could potentially find its way into the trial, depending on how this happens and how the information has come to light.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.